So tell us a little more about yourself.
So I've been working in publishing for about 35 years now, as an editor, writer, proofreader. I do a lot of traveling. I travel a lot to Zimbabwe because I run a very small NGO with a friend of mine, in Matabele land, and we supply schools with learning material and books and everything related to literacy. So I do tend to go up there once a year to Vic Falls and then to Matabele land. And I've been very lucky to also spend a lot of time in the bush. So my parents loved the Kruger Park. So as a child, I went to the Kruger Park a lot and still go to the Kruger.
So I see that's a little bit of a theme in your books, because even in your children's books, I've got the 2 children's books, the elephants that they're coming, and Aunt Alice and the lion.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think the main character in those books I read is Themba.
That's right. And then there's also Themba's safari activity books. It's got stickers in it and all sorts of puzzles. So Themba and Aunt Alice and the Lion, I actually initially wrote those for the children in the main village where I do work in Zimbabwe, the village. And what I realized was that they don't have many books where they can actually recognize themselves. So a lot of donated books, but it's things that are not within their context, and it's very important for children, to develop a love of reading by reading books that are set in their context, so that they can recognize themselves. So I wrote those 2 books, and then I submitted them to Penguin, and they picked them up and they printed them, which was really lovely. Yeah.
Okay. And now Khaki Fever is in the same line, although this one is for adults.
This is my first attempt at an adult book, yes.
Okay. And what I found interesting is that this book is being called a comedy romance. But, you're in publishing, so I'm sure you know all about tropes. And what I found is, when I read it, I thought, to me, it didn't feel like a comedy romance, because there was comedy, yes, but the romance was sort of very toned down, and it had none of the tropes. So where did the sort of designation as comedy romance come from?
I suppose it's a difficult book to sort of pin down to be any particular genre, I suppose. And when I started writing it, I felt like it was going to be a saga. But then the more I sort of wrote, the more I wanted it to be funny, and it just sort of became funny, because I found that's what I love to write. I love to write humor. And then there was a bit of romance, and there's a bit of drama, and there's a bit of adventure.
I think there's quite a lot of drama, actually.
Yeah. And there's animals. So it is actually difficult to say that it is a romance, because, as you say, the romance is very, very toned down. I don't think they don't even kiss.
They don't go beyond holding hands.
And the closest they get into being in bed is they're under the bed during a storm. I was talking to the proofreader about a possible sequel, and so he said, well, if you spice it up, you can call the next one Scarlet Fever. So, and then I said, yeah, we could do that. And then he said, otherwise 50 Shades of Khaki. So who knows? Maybe if there's a sequel or even a third one, it'll get hotter as it goes along. But I don't think I'm really that kind of author. I think because I can just see myself attempting to write something spicy and just packing up laughing and really into it.
There's some books that I think lean towards the spice, and I don't think Khaki Fever, if you're going to add any kind of spice to this book, add some braai vleis spice. That's the only spice. That's all. It was more adventure, leaning with a little bit of woman's fiction, because she's got her own sort of issues that she needs to overcome. Yeah. So there was a little bit of woman's fiction in there. But to me, it felt more woman's fiction in an adventure setting.
And I'm a big fan of Sophie Kinsella and Marion Keyes, and they don't have sort of big scenes,
Yeah.
So
It's calmed down. Yeah.
I felt better about it. At some point, I sort of felt, oh gosh, should I, ramp this up a bit? And then I thought, no, I don't feel like it.
So how has the book been received so far?
The feedback that I've got is people seem to find it very funny and have enjoyed it. And also what's interesting is that I think Michelle Magwood, in her initial review before when Jonathan Ball decided to publish it, she said that she galloped through it. And I think that is, a lot of the feedback is that it's a very pacey novel, and it is something that you, on a rainy day, you can sit down and you can read it in a day, or you can sit on the beach or on the plane. I think it's that kind of book. It's fun and pacey.
And I agree with everything you said. I felt the book was very funny. It was the pace was there. There was sort of lots of humor, lots of drama, lots to keep you entertained and intrigued. So I enjoyed it certainly. And well, I'm glad to hear there's a sequel, because I also felt like there were all these like unresolved arcs, and I think unresolved arcs are fine if there's going to be more books. So I was hoping when I got to the end and I'm like, okay, I thought there would be more. I thought we'd see more of her sort of like getting herself back on her feet, more of her developing this romance. There's no epilogue. And then I thought, okay, maybe that's because it's more.